You're good. Okay. Welcome everyone to Tourism Hospitality Management Career Week, and here we are with our tourism panel of experts. I am Maria Matthews. For those of you that don't know me, I am your moderator for today, so I'm trying to keep things on track. There will be time at the end for questions and answers, but we do have some set questions for today, but I will open it up to the floor to ask some questions at the end. Just a few housekeeping notes. We have 2 emergency exits. I feel like I'm on the airline. One at the back and one here at the front, just in case of emergency, so that we know how to evacuate the building. This is lining passport eligible, so can you please make sure that you have your either your booklets or your page filled in so that you can get your stamp at the end of the class. Okay, perfect. So I do want to ask the first question. I'm going to open it up to the panelists. If you could give a quick bio about yourselves, the company you work for and the position you hold within that company. So feel free, whoever would like to start us off.
Alrighty. Hi, everybody. My name is Josh Council. I'm one of the co-owners of Good Robot Brewing Company in the north end of Halifax. I'm also the marketing director for that company. So, in a way, I'm the facilitator or the curator of people's quirky beer experiences.
Hello, my name is Tammy White. I'm the Director of Revenue and Optimization for the Aquilini Properties Group, and you'll never know what that is, but it's 11 hotels, 10 is in Canada. Best Western Plus Chocolate Lake is just around the corner from here, actually up by Halifax Shopping Centre. And then the Holiday Inn Truro, and then 3 hotels in New Brunswick, and 3 in Montreal, and 2 in Vancouver. And then a little guy in Italy that they won't send me to yet, but I'm trying. I've been to the rest of them. So I actually started my career here, and I have a Bachelor of Tourism and Hospitality Management, and so I started out as a server and worked my way up to where I am today with front desk and everything. So yeah, it's great to be here, and thank you, and it's always fun to be here with Paulette and everybody.
My name is Michelle Burgess, and I am a sales manager with the Lord Nelson Hotel and Suites. So my hotel is a 4.5-star luxury property in downtown Halifax, and we just completed a multi-million-dollar renovation. We renovated absolutely everything, all 262 guest rooms and 12,000 square feet of meeting space. So as I said, I'm a sales manager, so I manage the accounts for the university and the hospital market, as well as the Atlantic region corporate companies. So for the corporate side, I would offer discounted rates for their employees to use, but mostly I book group business. So that can be room blocks or conferences, meetings, special events. It's mostly what I do. Thank you.
My name is Christina Hall, and I work at the Canadian Museum of Immigration at Pier 21. And so my job there is I'm the manager of interpretation and visitor experience. What I think is really kind of neat about being here today is that originally, you know, my background is in museums, and you study history and you learn how to build exhibits, and then you go to a museum and you find out that the biggest audience of your museum are tourists. And suddenly you need to learn a lot about tourism really, really fast, which is what I did. So a big part of my job is bringing in lots of visitors into the museum, which means I get to go to a lot of the different tourism shows around. There's the Ontario Motor Coach, there's Atlantic Canada Showcase, there's Rendezvous Canada, and I get to go kind of sell my product, my museum, to different tour groups. I also manage all the front-end staff, and I manage interpretation of the exhibits and the actual content. So by that I mean I make immigration history interesting and relatable for people, and fun. Fun's a big part of it.
Hello everyone, my name is Christina Hall, and I'm a tour planner coordinator with Atlantic Tours and Travel. We are based out of Dartmouth, and we are a full-service travel agency, so we can take you anywhere you want to go in the world think of that awesome destination that you're hoping for. We have a few components to the business, and what I'm primarily involved with is that I work with groups who are looking to come to Atlantic Canada, and I help organize their tours. So potentially they're looking to tour the Maritimes, Newfoundland, or potentially both. And certainly in my capacity, I'm dealing with companies around the world. We deal quite extensively with companies in the US, but we're also seeing more interest in international travel and having such countries as Australia, the UK, Portugal, for instance. So it's quite interesting to be able to be involved in something like that and, see us bring different groups of people to the wonderful sites that we have here to offer in Atlantic Canada. I of course did go to the Mount. I have my certificate in tourism and hospitality management, so it's great to be back and just kind of brings back old times, and wonderful to see you all. So thank you for coming up.
Thank you, everyone. Excellent. So some of you have touched on how your career sort of evolved, but if you didn't in your bio or your introduction, can you please give us a little bit more information on how has your career evolved over the years? But I always like to ask the question, did you plan on having a career in tourism? And I'll be interested to find out your feedback on that. And what things have you done to support your progression in this industry?
No.
Most people say no.
I actually was educated as a mechanical engineer. I tried that for a few years in the field. I really didn't care for it. There was way too much office work and not enough fun. So every year, to kind of escape the monotony of the day-to-day office life, me and my two buddies who co-founded the company with me would get together and go to a music festival, or we'd go to Disney World, or we'd go somewhere where we could basically act like children. And during those escapades, we would be drinking beer and going, what are we going to do with our lives? I feel like the answer's right in front of me. And eventually we just decided to pull the trigger and open a brewery in the North End. So marketing became an on-the-fly thing for me, very much trial by fire. We made a lot of mistakes because of that, but it's all been practical knowledge. And what started as me basically sending out tweets and whatnot on the fly is now developed into a 12-person marketing team, including an events director with an events team. We've got a Goodwill ambassador who handles all our charities and sponsorships. We've got a Glee Club president who looks after our best bar regulars. We have a social media and digital advertising manager. We've got a creative director with a 5-person design team, and so on and so forth. So everything has been very organic in its approach and sort of evolving with what we saw as necessary for the company and the community. As far as putting steps into learning what marketing is, things like this help. You guys have the education in tourism and hospitality. I don't. Other than having lifelong jobs working at retail positions. So I always like giving brewery tours to folks who are studying tourism. I like interviewing, wink wink, students who are studying tourism and marketing and hospitality because I get a lot of great feedback from you folks. And other than that, it's a lot of self-education.
I actually got into this industry at a very young age, was the server, and thought I was just doing it as a summer job. And then landed at Nova Scotia Community College for the 2 years, and then came over to the Mount and have my degree. I was fortunate enough in between that time to do a fellowship program at Walt Disney World in Florida. So that was a highlight of my career, I thought at the time, and it still is, but there's a lot of great things that have happened since, but and I was very focused on getting my degree, so I came back and did that. And so I've done a lot of things through my career, and I started out in food and beverage and thought I was going to stay there, and found that oh my, you never know what's going to happen from day to day when the bar opens up. And so numbers was more my thing, and so I started out getting on the front desk and moved along and opened up hotels, renovated hotels, moved across the country for various projects, and literally right across Canada. So it's been an interesting few years. It's been too many years, but Nova Scotia is my home, and I have decided that I want to be here, and so this is my home base. And so that's one of the reasons I love tourism, is I can stay here and help develop the tourism industry. So that's kind of where I've been and how I got here. It's quite the path, and what I love about hospitality and tourism is you never know where your long-term plans could be. I thought I was going to be a GM, and now I'm a director of revenue. So you just never know what path will lead you where.
So I also did not think I'd be moving into tourism for my career. I was initially trained as an architectural drafter, and like you, I found it very boring. So I had to change paths, and I came here to the Mount. But I started my career on the front desk of the Cambridge Suites Hotel. But it was a few months after I started that the director of sales actually learned that I had this degree, Bachelor of Tourism and Hospitality Management, and quickly took me off the front desk and made me the sales coordinator for the Cambridge Suites sales team. And that's an admin role, so you support the sales team. But shortly after that, they realized I had more potential, because this is an awesome degree, and they created an entirely new position for me that the company never had before. That was Business Development Coordinator. Now, this did have some admin responsibilities, but mostly what I was doing was finding new business for both the Cambridge Suites and the Prince George Hotel. Now, this position was actually used to train me to become a sales manager. It was like a stepping stone. And to help me with this progression, I took a sales course with the Canadian Professional Sales Association and became a certified sales professional. And I also took training through Hospitality Worldwide and Oculus, which are companies who specialize in training employees of 4.5 stars or 5-star hotels to provide very high quality service. And this brings me where I am today as a sales manager, and I've been there for 5 years at the Lord Nelson.
So I kind of alluded to it when I answered my first question, but I didn't really think that I would be working in the tourism industry. But what was kind of interesting was that I started off about 8 years ago at the Canadian Museum of Immigration at Pier 21, or just Pier 21 if you want, as in my job as the manager of visitor experience. But at that time, it was basically being the lead tour guide. That's what that job really was. I would hire the tour guides, I would train the tour guides, but I would do a lot of the training, and I would do a lot of the tours myself. And so after a while, I thought that maybe there was other potential there. So it turns out that a lot of historians really don't know how to talk to regular people about history. Some do, and they're very special, and luckily at my museum we have a couple. But something that I learned is that to try to encourage people to come into the museum, we have to translate this content into something that people are going to be able to relate to. And so I saw this need at my museum. And so I spent the next week or so writing down a job description for my dream job. I was like, this is what I want to do. I want to train people on how to do this. I want to study up on how to talk to people about these complicated issues. I want to try to get more visitors in this museum, so I need to know how to do that. And I wrote down my dream job description and I gave it to my boss, thinking that she'd be like, ha ha ha, Christine, you're crazy. This is very cute. turns out that they actually brought it all the way up to the CEO, and they turned it into a position for me. They were like, yeah, I think you're right. I think we need this. So I'm lucky to work in a place that is so supportive of its workers, but I think it's also because I saw that we needed something, that there was something that wasn't quite clicking. So that was really, really interesting, and something that's really kind of helped me on this journey is amazing tourism folks that have helped me along the way, that teach me some of the big basics of working in this industry. And I think that you guys coming in with all this knowledge are going to have such you're going to come in at a much higher level, I think, than folks like me that had to kind of learn it on the fly. You're coming in with so much knowledge. So yeah, that's kind of how I got to where I am.
Well, like the other panelists, I too can
I'm not loud enough already? Yeah, okay. What do you feel, panelists, are the most important skills that people need in tourism and hospitality?
Specifically,
Well, he said it in a nutshell.
So I will second that. A positive
So we even have we have artwork of ducks on the walls to remind us. So
Well, I would certainly concur with what
Thank you. So we're going to start the other end, just to mix it up a bit. So describe the hiring process at your companies. What do you look for in new hires, and do you feel that a university degree in tourism is advantageous to students?
Okay, thank you. Absolutely.
At my work, I'm going to talk specifically just about my department.
So personally, I'm not involved with the hiring process at my hotel, but I did consult with our HR manager so I could share something with you. Basically,
I'm actually not in the hiring department anymore either, which is kind of good in many ways.
Yep. Regarding the hiring process, the first thing we look at, to touch upon our previous note, was work ethic. And that comes across very easily when I see you've worked a lot of jobs at the types of places I'd previously discussed. You don't really have an opportunity to slack at those places. So I see someone who's worked at Boston Pizza. We've had about 4 folks now at our company who have. They're always excellent. After that, Dalhousie MBA study of our company called our company a flat corporate structure. And what they meant by that was everyone within a director or management position in the company started in our store filling growlers and went from there. So it's less about qualifications for us and more about work ethic and attitude. The attitude component is something you can measure right up front. And there's a very simple question that seems like a throwaway question in our interview process, which is where I put about 60% of my weighting, and it is, why good robot? And about 97% of applicants, we have hospitality positions open right now, and we've had 1,200 applicants, and I go through all that. You can delete them pretty much off the bat when they say, it's close to my house, which is a very common answer, and always a clear sign that they're not interested in working for your company. They're just looking for a job. So I can't stress it enough, with that amount of resumes, if anyone here actually does the hiring process, which a few of you do, you don't look at the resume. You look at the application questionnaire. That's why those questions are there, because those are the questions we care about. So there's probably lots of awesome applicants who we've never given the chance to even interview because they bumbled that one so important question, which is why our company. Maybe it's because you absolutely adore hospitality and serving people, and you've been to our place before, and you like the customers we serve, and you want to add to that. That's a great answer. Don't say you're in between jobs. The third component that we look at is a diversity component. Craft brewing is traditionally an age 24 to 40-year-old white male-dominated industry. Within our company, we have a group called Birds of a Feather that we organized with a business strategist about a year ago, and right after this I have a meeting with them. We meet every 6 weeks, and it involves employees from all tiers of the company, from the store to creative direction to social media to management of hospitality, all over the map. And what we do is we talk about the problems our company is experiencing, internally and externally, and we come to solutions, and everyone gets delegated homework. And one of the facets of that we all agree on is that there's a lack of diversity in craft beer and brewing. So it's very important for us to reach the underserved communities with the application process and prioritize those folks for hiring.
Thank you. What do you like the most about being in the tourism industry or the hospitality industry, and what do you like the least? I'm hoping there's not too many least. Would you like to start?
Double back?
Yes.
What I like the most is that in hospitality and industry, you're guaranteed to work with fun, interesting people. You gotta have a personality and an enjoyment of people to do this industry. So conversely to my engineering career, where every day was basically a remake of Office Space, I come into work and the staff are laughing and they're having a great time, and we do a lot of jokes, and a lot of those jokes come to fruition as ideas, which then become something that gets executed in the company. It's a joy. It's a complete 180 degree from what I was doing 6 or 7 years ago, and I love that about it. I love that you actually get involved with the community. I was raised in the suburbs. I never had the concept of community before this company. So being able to get involved with different nonprofit organizations and supporting them, or putting on events with different communities, is super fun and really rewarding. I'd say the worst element is unreasonable expectations, and that usually comes from the guests. The customer is almost never right. That's not the point of that rule. The point is that you work with them to arrive at something satisfactory. But with the age of social media, you will learn that no matter how hard you try to make your place a better place and try to better a community, there are going to be people that just shit on you just by virtue of you being who you are. Your company, your personality, that's your brand. And people don't like you just for who you are, who you're born to. And they will make your everyday miserable if you listen to them. So it's important that you spend time in the space of the people who are enjoying your space. For me, that means leaving my office and going downstairs to the bar and talking with our regulars. That means asking my marketing team or the hospitality staff to stay after work and have a drink with me, because they exude joy and they get to serve people who are there to have a good time all the time.
As I've said, my career has kind of changed and morphed over time, and I probably the most fun I've always had is when working the front desk or being a server or restaurant manager and interacting with those guests. Today I don't do as much of that. I sit in an office, so I take the time and I go and I visit our hotels, and I spend a week at a time. Actually, I go to Fredericton next week, so that I can get that team chat and that guest interaction. So, in August we opened up the Hilton Garden Inn in Fredericton, 110 unit property, and it was a hell of a ride in 3 weeks to get it to the bottom line and get it all going. And so, but it was a lot of fun. And so it's those kind of interactions with our team, with my, my extension of all my 10 front desk teams that I have, and the sales and the GMs, or I laughingly call them my crazy ass GMs, because that's kind of, I don't have the guest interaction anymore. So so I have an extension of a team, and so I really enjoy that. I guess, and seeing those things happen. So on a bad note of what I guess causes me the most stress in my job. So my job, just to clarify, as revenue management, is trying to make as much money for the hotel on every single day. It's a big job today, and especially when you're doing it for 10, 11 hotels. So But what causes me the most stress is when I am not making those budgets due to things maybe outside my control, but I know that then may cause a housekeeping agent not to get their hours, or a server not to get their hours, front desk agent not getting their hours. Maybe somebody's getting laid off. It's not about my owner not making the money. That's what causes me the most stress. Fortunately, I don't have very many of those days. I'm doing pretty good, but it's still, that's out of my job. I know that's what I'm responsible for. Because my paycheck, I'm salary, I'm going to get it. But I do worry about them. And so that's the days that bother me. In this industry, there's lots of ups and downs in that line.
So my most favorite thing to do is to work with my clients. So especially my university and hospital clients. I really enjoy bringing academic conferences to Halifax where new and innovative concepts and ideas are discussed and discovered, and helping put Halifax on the map as a leader in research as well as conference services. That's my absolute favorite thing about my job and my market. Now let's get real, I'm a salesperson. My least favorite thing is losing a conference to my competition.
Yeah, I can imagine. Okay, so I love my job because today, right before coming here, I spent about an hour making shadow puppets for an exhibit that we have that I will do a shameless plug very quickly for. The exhibit opens on the 9th, so on Saturday. It's called Family Bonds and Belonging, and it's an exhibit that's coming in from the Royal BC Museum that we've adapted for our museum. And one of the really fun things about this exhibit is in the corner, we actually built a kids section. Where we're still talking about the content, we're still talking about families and how families come together and things that families do together. But we got to also build a pillow fortress. So I did that last week. I was building a pillow fort at my work, making sure it doesn't collapse in on the children. That would be bad. And so I love my job because I get to be super, super creative. I get to, you know, think about ways to get people into the content, interested in the content, to go home and talk to their own families about some of the content. And I think for me, with the topic that we're talking about, this topic of immigration, I think that that's super important, especially now, you know, where at my work we talk about, you know, racism and divisiveness every day. You know, we're trying to combat that every single day. And so the thing that I like least about my work kind of plays into that a little bit. But it can be a positive too sometimes. So we have some folks that come into the museum that are not supportive of immigration and are racist. And it happens. And sometimes those conversations can be really interesting with these people, because what we want to do is change people's minds. We want to change their heart and their mind while they're in the exhibits, and maybe confront them with some information that they might have to process and come to a different conclusion. So sometimes it can make for very interesting conversations, and sometimes it really doesn't. Sometimes you just like, why are you in this museum right now? Like, clearly I think you're just here to tell us that you don't like immigrants. Like, what's happening? And so sometimes I get frustrated when I can't reach out, when I can't bridge that gap with people who might have different opinions from the opinions that we're kind of sharing in the exhibit. But sometimes it can be pretty magical if somebody comes in and they thought, well, when I came in I thought this, but now I'm walking away different. And those are just the most amazing moments.
Certainly working with clients for me is the most rewarding part of my position. I really am their main point of contact, so they come to me. You know, I'm working with them to develop an itinerary. That can sometimes be a process, but it's certainly quite interesting you know, you're in a position where you're actually able to teach people about our area and all the great things that it has to offer. So that's certainly rewarding sometimes when people really have no idea, especially coming from different parts of the world, and just being able to show them, of course, all the great things that we can showcase here in Atlantic Canada. So I just find that relationship very rewarding. I will certainly do everything in my power that I can to bring a tour together, and that can involve many different components. I guess that really kind of ties into my least favorite part of the job, which is actually maybe sometimes when I can't make that tour happen. Not through the fault of anybody, it's just that in some cases maybe we just have so much business and limited resources at times that, you know, it's just not possible. Maybe the hotel is already booked up. Maybe transportation has already been secured. So maybe you're just kind of missing that one component and you just can't bring it together for the client who wants a specific product at a specific time. But I mean, again, you develop that relationship, and again, that can turn into another positive, because then you're in a position where you can show people the alternatives, and you can certainly work with that and, you know, make a sell in that regard. So like I say, it's kind of a dual-edged sword, but at the end of the day, really, it's very rewarding to be able to put these tours together, see them travel, see them do well, and actually see people come back again and again, which now I'm in a position to see repeat business. So that's really rewarding when they've had a great experience and they're coming back to see us again.
Thank you. So we're going to start with Christine again, just to be fair. Obviously, our industry, we've seen many changes over the last little while, decades. I know I've been in this industry 25 years and I've seen many changes. So in view of the changes that you're seeing and any future changes that you think, how do you see that as an opportunity for your companies?
I certainly see that there's a lot of potential out there. And, you know, I guess just to kind of carry on with what I was just speaking about, I mean, when you consider the city of Halifax, it was interesting, not too long ago, I just looked at an article, and it was Google Maps showing what some streets looked like 10 years ago and what they look like today. And it's just phenomenal, the change that has occurred. And one of the bonuses we have here in this city is, of course, our new convention center. And that greatly increases the capacity that we're able to hold in this city for the types of conferences and so forth. So really, we're just putting ourselves on the world stage. And like I say, that brings with it an enormous amount of potential for all of you, for, you know, all the various components within the industry. So like I say, I just see that moving ahead and knowing what I'm currently dealing with in the industry, and that is the continued demand that's coming, which is a great thing. It just shows you that there is more potential on the horizon. And I do see that, you know, we should be able to continue to see a lot of growth in this industry, because I do believe, going back to the tie-ins conference, you know, in about 10 years' time, they're looking for the tourism revenue to double. So certainly with what we're seeing then, like I say, I think that's a lot of opportunity for everyone here in this room and for the industry in general.
I think for me, it's mostly two things that I've noticed. The first thing that I've noticed directly is this incredible rise of Chinese tourism in Halifax and Nova Scotia and Canada. So I remember learning about this a couple of years ago and approaching my boss and being like, maybe we should start looking at this. This might be kind of interesting. I don't know. And she said, yeah, why don't you spend a little more time looking into that? So I started doing more research. I hired a Chinese student, and we started kind of looking at it together. We started building this program. And now we're doing business with two of the huge Chinese motor coach companies out of Markham, Ontario, who come in and bring us an incredible number of people. Like, thousands and thousands and thousands, like 145 people a day, I think, throughout the summer. So it's just a huge number of people. And the only reason why we can accommodate them is because I started doing this work about 2 years ago. So I think it's a lesson to kind of keep your ear to the ground and see what's coming up and what you can maybe start working towards. The second thing that I think has really changed the industry is technology. Technology is huge now, and it's changed it in all kinds of different ways. One of the ways it's changed it is that it's given us an opportunity to engage with our visitors on a national and international level on our website. It's also given people an opportunity to make comments on different travel websites and things like that about the museum. Most of them, if you go check us out, are very positive. But there's a few of them every now and then that, it's somebody who is a little ticked off, and you have to respond to these. So that level of technology is really interesting. And I think that because of that technology, it's kind of making people start to think about doing, how do I put this? In my mind, it was so clear. How to start doing unusual things in regular spaces. So an example, I'm actually going to use Good Robot as an example of this, and I will talk about my museum as well. But I'm a huge fan of the silent reading. And I realized, so there's a silent reading night at the Good Robot where they turn up the music, tell everyone to stop talking, and you read and have a beer for 2 hours. And for me, that's like heaven. I just love the idea of reading and drinking beer and nobody talking to me for about 2 hours. But I realized that the reason why I feel like that's such a great idea is because you're doing something that's very unusual in a bar. Like, it's very unusual that you'll find everyone just being quiet and reading. That's not normal. So it makes me think about having people do things like that in our museum. What are some behaviors that you don't typically see in museums that people really want to do? And I'm seeing it all the time now when you have like an Instagrammable area in a museum where you can pose next to a statue and take a picture, And I feel like in the past that would have been really frowned upon. Because museums are super serious and you're not supposed to have fun in museums. But now I think that, and I think technology has kind of helped us to get to this point, but now, people are starting to respond to those desires to do something unusual in a really usual place, if you know what I mean. I don't know if that made any sense.
So in the hotel industry, we've seen a strong growth in OTA bookings, that stands for Online Travel Agent, from sites such as Expedia. These sites, through marketing, the customer is led to believe that they're getting the best deal from these websites rather than consulting the hotel directly to book their rooms. And most of the time, that's not the case. They're not getting the better deal. Booking direct is the better idea. Nova Scotia, in general, is getting a lot more leisure travel in recent years, and a lot of that, as mentioned here, is the Chinese market. There is a tourism spike, as this is now considered a really desirable destination. Also, Halifax is attracting more international conferences, and that is because of the new convention center. So the tourism industry, it's fast, it's lively, there's always an opportunity for growth, and any grad, no matter what level of job you're looking for, can likely find something within this industry.
I actually had technology on my thing, but from a different standpoint, and to the fact that it's ever changing in our industry as to how we service our guests. So it can be a very expensive thing to always be the best at this. For example, our new hotel, the Hilton Garden Inn, we just installed, it seems like a simple thing, door locks, right? The old swipe keys. Well, it's not just so simple as that anymore, because now it has to be, on your phone, and you can just use your phone to go to the door. And the guests can check in without actually coming to the front desk. So how do we actually get their credit card? That's a simple process that has been made very, very complicated. But for the ease of you, the guest checking in, might not always be the ease of us at the desk, or us trying to pay for that new technology all the time, because as consumers, we always want the biggest, the best, the newest. So in the hotel industry, we're always happy to put out capital to stay on top of that. And, you know, it could be the fact that we just bought, you know, 50-inch TVs last year, but now something's come out new and the guests want Chromecast, or they want this on the TV, or they want a simple thing. I mean, we could have just all bought simple things, coffee makers, and the next thing you know, we need the newest brand. So, and I know technology, maybe you're not thinking of coffee makers, but you'd be surprised what they do these days. I am. So from that standpoint, it can be a challenge. And as brands differentiate themselves and they become, like, for example, Marriott, that, you know, I think they have 1,000 brands these days. I know I'm elaborating, but, you know, exaggerating, but, you know, they're all trying to figure out how to differentiate themselves, and technology is one of them. One of the benefits, of course, for me in my part of the world is technology, because it does a lot of the data analytics in some of the properties for me. So from that, I really enjoy it. But there's a lot of research and a lot of training. So one of the things that I find with technology is it keeps me constantly training and finding out what's the newest and the biggest thing, and whether or not that could actually be, how do we sell on our website, you know, and how do we make sure that the guest understands that, yes, booking direct is at the property is the best price and the most customer friendly, because, you know, so that kind of stuff. It's always, always, always changing. I love that part, but it's a challenge. And maybe it's the challenge that I love, but at the same time, it's something that this industry, which, you know, we used to build the room and it would stay that way for 20 years, you know. It's, you know, the old comforter and that kind of stuff. It's not that way today, and our guest will not accept it. So from that point of view, it's challenging to stay on top, and it's very costly to stay on top and be the newest and the best.
So in short, technology, but I'm going to touch upon some social changes that have occurred that I would never have thought were that important to something like the bar industry. There is a brand new culture out there, largely in part to social media, and a lot of good things come from that. When there is a story in the news about drinks being roofied in the North End at other bars, it's not good enough for a business owner in this day and age to simply tell the staff that it's happening and to watch out for it. You have to be proactive. And what I mean by that is you have to have regular conversations with your staff and systems in place to deal with the modern issues of importance. As an example to the roofing story, we have posters in the bar talking about the signs that you have had something slipped into your drink. We've got systems in place for if you are on an uncomfortable Tinder date, here is a number you can text to let the bartender know discreetly that the situation is getting uncomfortable and you don't know how to get out. You always have to think ahead, and for that reason, you folks have an advantage because you're all young, and you know these issues and see them, and so you can bring these to whatever you're going into. It's going to affect every industry. Certainly the more ground level the industry, like a bar, the more important it's going to be. I'm out of touch with a lot of these things, which is why I work with my staff to figure out what the issues are and bring in the appropriate voices to the conversation to make sure that the issues are dealt with in advance. And it's just going to become progressively more progressive, to use a redundant term, but you're always going to have to be relevant from a social standpoint if you are in a social industry.
Thank you. Some fascinating conversations. Really appreciate that. Okay, so we're going to open up to the floor now. Would anyone in the room like to ask a question to our panelists? And I want to see some hands up. Thank you.
So I think.
Oh, we need a microphone. We can't hear it otherwise.
Hi, my name is Shannon. I'm a second-year tourism and hospitality student. And so I'm kind of like a firm believer in you can't love someone unless you love yourself. And same goes with being a leader. You need to really build your own leadership skills. And so I kind of want to throw this out to all of you. I'm curious what you've done for your own personal development and growth that has allowed you to be the best leader that you can be for your team. And I'm talking like outside of university education or like a formal training program. Like, what do you do to make sure that you can be the best leader you can?
Good. Yep.
Funny you asked that question, because there was a management question that I didn't touch on, and that was, what do you look for in anyone in this room who's looking to be a future manager? And I can tell you that over the last 5 years of this gig and 3 years of engineering, that the worst managers were the ones with residual personal problems in their life that were unresolved. So that is the most important thing, is taking care of yourself. And if you have had issues in your past with relationships, with your parents, whatever it might be, get some help, get some therapy, meditate, exercise daily if you can, eat healthily, and establish other good things in your life that are going to let you function as an adult. And I'm saying that from a practical standpoint, and then that's how I've tackled it. Especially if you deal with mental health issues, and I can say that I do. So when you're in a management capacity, don't externalize that, because it will filter down into your staff.
I want to touch upon some things as well. To become a good leader within the hotel industry, it's all about understanding every aspect of the hotel and how it's run. You have to understand how housekeeping works, maintenance, front desk, catering. There are so many moving parts in a hotel, and if they're not all working together, everything falls apart. So don't be afraid to get your hands dirty. Shadow every department. Help clean rooms, help flip function spaces, fold towels in the laundry room. Learn how the front desk handles guest complaints. Learn how the sales team forges strong client relationships. If you do all these things, you'll have a deeper understanding of how a hotel works. You'll respect the operation of the hotel, and this will help you progress in the management levels.
I guess I'm just more so like concerned about your own personal development, like what you've done to be a leader, like more like what you kind of touched on.
This may be a hard knocks way to go at it, but I've been fortunate to be around a lot of great leaders, and so I've been a sponge. The same is I've been around some really, I'll never do that scenario, and I probably learned more from that. So again, I've loved having a team and working with teams, and so for me, like you, because I've worked the ground up and I've been in those positions, and so how that whole thing about treat others how you want to be treated and all those kind of things, that's how I've learned to be the leader that I am today. Is I've just spread my wings and surrounded myself with some really great people and knew the ones I didn't want to be around anymore.
Something that I noticed in terms of the leadership is, I started working at the museum as a manager 8 years ago, and I'm 35 now, so I was quite young. I was the youngest manager on the team. In fact, I think I might still be the youngest manager on the team. I'm a young woman, and I was really intimidated at first, and it was kind of my first job where I was really managing a group of people, and they were really looking to me to lead them, and it was hard at first, and I had and still have today imposter syndrome every once in a while, where I'm like, how did I trick everyone into thinking I knew what I was doing? But what I realized is that that's a passing feeling. I do know what I'm doing. It's fine. And the reason why I feel that way is because I'm still being challenged every day. It means that I'm not bored with my job. If I stopped having that imposter's feeling sometimes, I think that it would be because I'm bored. I've already reached the peak of where I need to be, which isn't the case. And so I kind of learned to kind of embrace a little bit of that insecurity and know that it's only because I'm trying new things all the time. And then once I started doing that, I became more confident. And then as soon as you have that confidence, then other people know that they can trust you in your confidence. And I think it made me a better leader to take some time to acknowledge that there are some insecurities there and try to build on them and see the positives in those insecurities too.
Well, one thing I've done over the years, I've been involved with, when it comes to leadership, of course, communication is key. And you find yourself in a position where all eyes are on you. And obviously you want to be able to express confidence in what you're saying and certainly make sure you get people on your side. Certainly, sometimes even just becoming involved in a group such as Toastmasters, which is really about public speaking. And I think sometimes that's, really when we think of leadership and being able to get people on our side, we have to be able to convey a certain message and be confident with that. And that's certainly what that can teach you on an ongoing basis. Sometimes we go through school, we get that education, we leave, and maybe we think, okay, that's the end of that. Well, it's never the end of it. It's something that you have to use on a continual basis, and you can just refine and get better with time. And certainly something like that gives you the opportunity to do that. And you're really working with perhaps peers. So like I say, anytime I think you have an opportunity to gain more confidence, take advantage of it, and you will find that when you get in front of people, you will be able to communicate the message that you need to.
Thanks.
We have time for one more question. Does anyone feel they would like to ask something? You can do it. No? Thank you.
Hi, my name is Chiga. I'm from China. I'm this kind of third-year tourism student, degree student. The question I want to ask is kind of, not say personal, but it's about me. Like, I'm 37. I had a lot of experience back home in China, but zero here. Why? Because I'm a full-time student. I got to focus on my school, right? So what I want to ask is people like me who had experience in China. I used to have 13 restaurants back home, but I have zero here. How do I start? And I'm going to have my practica this summer, so kind of here for a solution. Thank you.
If I can start on that, simply because, in my situation, and I'm older than you are, in my case, it was a change of career completely. So yes, I had many years of business experience behind me, but how do I take that and translate that into another field? And the best piece of advice I can give you, and it's something that I did myself, and that is you take advantage of every opportunity you can to get yourself out there and introduce yourself to people. And sometimes you might be surprised, even something as simple as a hello and a smile, people will remember you and they will connect with you. I've actually run into situations where I've gone to job fairs, met people, and then gone for a job only to find out the person that I met is the person who's doing the hiring. And suddenly there's a connection just because of being in the right place at the right time. So never underestimate that. And I think the more you can do that, then the more people remember you, then they get to know you. And sometimes, you have to be maybe satisfied with starting off small, but that doesn't mean that you'll stay there forever. You can work and build upon that, but it is about trying to get a foot in the door. And like I say, I think the more you can do just to make that connection, then, that's certainly a good step in the right direction.
Hi. I actually recommend that you join an organization called MPI, Meeting Professionals International. Now, it's not just about meetings. There's suppliers, and there's partners, and there's all kinds of people within the hotel, hospitality industry, restaurant industry, all within this organization, MPI. They actually have a student membership, which is very reasonably priced, I'm told. I don't know the exact price, but very cheap. And they have an Atlantic chapter, but they also have it's an international organization, so there's chapters across the world. But the Atlantic chapter organizes several education sessions throughout the year, as well as networking sessions throughout the year. And my recommendation is to go to every single one of those, because you don't know who you're going to talk to. Everybody in that room is either a leader or an influencer in some way within their organization, and they can really launch your career.
I don't know if this would be totally applicable, but it's worth mentioning. So at my museum, we have a program called Welcome Home to Canada, and it's a 6-month contract hiring program at my work that's specific to hiring immigrants. You have to be a permanent resident for 6-month contracts in different aspects of the museum. So there's usually like somebody for the media people, and then I usually hire at least a couple, and for our internet team and things like that. So it's a really great, the idea of the program is that it helps to give new Canadians their first Canadian work experience at a national museum, which looks usually pretty impressive on a resume. So there, you know, even if my museum isn't necessarily the right fit, there might be other programs out there that might do something similar. So you can take a look and see if there's any helpful programs like that.
Thank you.
Did you say you owned 13 restaurants?
Yeah, 13 plus 2.
Congratulations, mate. That's amazing. You have a capacity for stress that I don't. Can I ask if you came here for personal or professional reasons?
I mean, coming to Canada?
Yeah, why'd you give up 13 restaurants?
Well, long story short, I want to call Canada home.
Okay.
And
Fair enough.
I was in Vancouver for a few years.
Gotcha.
And then I went back to China for 12 years and struggled to come back.
Sure. Fair enough. Well, I can't help you if it's a personal reason, but what I will say is everyone's been touching upon this a little bit. Start a little lower. Mm-hmm. If I was to be hiring kitchen managers and I saw someone who owned 13 restaurants, at least out of curiosity, I would bring them in for an interview and then figure out why they no longer do. My friend Joey was an owner of a very successful brewery and a couple of bars, and due to his divorce, he lost it, and he moved to a different part of the country and applied for a low-level sales job, and he's now essentially one of the co-owners of the company less than a couple of years later. So, you know, you have to have a little bit of humility since you don't have the connections that you used to, and start at a level like that. But I guarantee you, people see that management capacity, they will invite you in.
Thank you.
Yeah, and that's what I was sitting here struggling with is, you know, if I'm sitting there looking at your resume and it's going to look amazing, but your struggle is going to be to convince people that you're going to stick around, right? And so to invest in you. So I think going in with in that headspace of not only why me, but why me because I have all this and I'm going to be your asset and what I'm going to bring to the table and take a chance on me. And so that's where I would really focus my time when you get an opportunity to sit in front of people. And networking events is probably your best bet because you're going to have that one. They're going to see you. They're not just going to see a piece of paper. And there's a lot of things that you can do for networking. So and that could be simply volunteering at events, not your traditional networking thing. It could be I don't know, volunteering at a dinner for a charity event or something like that, that, you're going to get higher level people that are working that event to make maybe raising funds for cancer or the IWK or something. But if you're volunteering in those kind of things, then you're going to reach out to the people that own their business and going to appreciate what you're bringing and what you've done for yourself. So, yeah, I've made a lot of contacts that way.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. And on that note, we are concluded. And I would like if you could join me in to thanking our esteemed guest and thank you for their contribution.